Welcome to Stock Therapy with Penny Queen. Today I have CEO Ofer Vicus with Aduro Clean Technologies. Ofer, welcome back.
Hi, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, the first question that I have, and it's come from a lot of different people, is by my math, you're sitting on about $6 million. Does this make it more likely that you're going to have an R3 produced?
Absolutely, yes. It builds our independence, of course, our ability to make our own decisions. So it's always help when we have more money in the bank than less, in that sense. I have to say and to remind to our investors that we always moved in the independent path. In other words, our path to build R3 was independent to our customers' engagement. And at some point of time, we think those things will converge together. And whenever a customer comes in, we'll show him at the end of a project or the beginning of a project where we are. But our ability and interest to build R3 is independent to anything else that is happening in the company. So more money in the bank give us more leverage and independence to make what we feel is the right decision for the company. Of course, being able to build our unit with less noise from anyone else.
Okay, perfect. Well, what would the R3 unit look like in terms of capacity if you were to do it on your own then?
So Penny, we need to speak of R3 now as what we call as a next generation unit. So we are moving away from what we called R3, and then we describe it as a next generation unit. And in our planning of the next generation unit, we consider the unit to be one that will take real material and will produce real output. And for that reason, this unit needs to be able to deal with our contaminations. That's the pre-processing section. And so we need to understand how that works. And we've done a lot of work in the last year to understand what needs to be done there. And then there is the configuration, the right configuration of the reactors. So what reactors are we using? How will they look like in light of that reality? And then there is the post-processing activity. And so from our perspective, the size of it is a lesser important than the component that I just told you. Remember, we're dealing with chemistry inside, and we have to make sure that we are minimizing any interference and continuation, and securing the actual process to be successful. So the size of it is, of course, of a less of important by that definition, and we have realized that through the work that we've been doing in the last year, of course, because that's, as we start thinking about those things, we had to think what's important, size or actual, um, let's say, component that are coming in, or a process, specific process, and how we break down the process and how we treat the material. In that sense, you realize that the size of it is a lesser of important. However, I should say that we made a decision to use any equipment that is more industrial equipment. So in the technology demonstration unit, in the pilots that we have back in our site, we're using material that is mixed. We're using capitals that is mixed, plus I'll say commercial. Some of it is more research based. The other one is a little bit industrial based. Our decision with respect to the current process is to use only equipment that has industrial. It doesn't matter what size of it, but it has to be an industrial spec. So we will make sure that we are using industrial equipment to build an industrial process.
Okay, perfect. So I guess that leads me into um, the bitumen R2. All right, you're still doing test runs for partners?
Yes, we're still doing test run with partners. We've done a first run of batches of this, and we had some, I'll say, work to do with respect to improving the process, the way we understand it, because we are learning about the process day in and day out as we're running those units. We're now went back and reconfigured the unit, and this work, the team is basically working to reconfigure the unit, and we'll come back to this. But the process and the project are active.
Okay, excellent. That's what I wanted to hear. Um, and in February, there was some conversation about, like a report on yields.
Yeah.
What can we expect?
So I think the word yield was there was expectation. If I understand correctly, there was expectations to show or demonstrate a yield performance. And Penny, the word yield is a little bit could be a little bit misleading, because when you're thinking about yield, you have to decide what you put in and what you put down, what's the components that are involved. Do you consider the life cycle assessment, items that are issued, that are coming in? Do you consider material, energy that you put in, energy that you produce? Do you consider hydrogenation? So yield could be broken down depending on every scenario very, very differently. And so the definition of yield is quite wide, becomes quite wide. So we dumb it down to a demonstration of what has been done in the unit with one polymer. I believe it was polypropylene. I think that's the testing that we were doing. And more complex reports basically goes to the customers based on the configuration of what they give us. So if they give us samples of X, Y, Z of material, then we're looking at it, and then we're building those technical reports based on what we've been doing. I should say, however, for the investors that are thinking about yield, that we had this assumption already 3-4 years ago that we're using lesser energy, we are living with higher contamination, and we are able to build smaller equipment. And so I can say to the investors that none of those I guess, components have changed so far. It's still sticking to that. So we're working based on those expectations. And so for that reason, that gives us the comfort level that whatever the yield will be, it is definitely better than whatever is out there today against almost any equipment. But if you want to do one-on-one, then it's really complex. We have to just take a case study and compare one-on-one, and that becomes much more complex issue. So far, we haven't seen anything that change our understanding about the performance of the unit and the yield, the expected yield of it.
Good. Good. I like to hear that. I know everybody, including myself, was extremely excited and pleased to see the polypropylene at about 95% there. So I think that's, I know it's very simplistic, and I did see the other 2-page report you put out. That was very helpful as well. Thank you.
And I'll give an example about when you think about yield. What is that you mentioned 95%, but for some companies, yield could be just the liquid that we're producing less the gas. For other companies, yield could be the liquid and the gas. So which yield do we refer to? And in both cases, some companies are actually asking for more gas, for more liquid, less gas. Some companies are saying, we don't care, just give us the whole ballpark. We'll just deal with that.
Okay. All right. Well, then um, I'm excited to hear, in terms whatever it is that you're able to put out as time goes on. But someday, I'd love to see the kind of information that goes to the customers in your engagement program. I know that belongs to them, and that's part of.
Belongs to them, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll be able to demonstrate maybe at some point of time we'll be able to. We're fairly, I hate saying that, fairly busy. I love saying that, but I hate saying that. Just explaining ourselves that we're so busy with whatever we're doing right now in order to produce data that is very important both for the customers or for our next generation unit. But maybe at some point I'll take a note, and maybe at some point we will build a case study to demonstrate exactly what we're thinking. But understand that this will have to then dictate, which system we're up and against. And there is plenty out there. And what we always referred is that really fundamentally, our peers are working in some limited capacity, both on chemical or economical. And we're breaking those barriers, and every time it's different. So every technology is a little bit different. Some technologies needs a lot of pre-processing equipment. And so you immediately get prices that are, going to the roof, because otherwise you can't get this material. Other companies have issues with maybe more hydrogenation, and you don't have hydrogen nearby, so you have transportations issue and all kind of things. So this is actually the real item that we're coming up against. It's not just to say yields, but I guess I'll take a note basically to maybe to prepare a case study for the investors. It won't be in the near future, please. Don't, it will be, but I understand where they're coming, and we'll make a note to prepare at some point something like that. I think it's important for the investors later to see, the companies that we're dealing with are receiving this type of reports. And by the way, at this point of time, this report belongs to them, not to us in that sense.
So I'd like to gauge where you are with your confidence of your 2024 year plan. I know you said that you wanted to convert two partnerships into collaborators, and you were looking to, I believe, add on two patents. How is 2024 looking right now?
Yeah, as a background, we target to do the following. We wanted to bring at least two more US-based patents, and to be able to submit them. And we discussed the type of those patents a little bit, and I think that was one item that we mentioned. The other item was, of course, our interest to increase, to move and turn what we call technology evaluators into collaborators agreement, at least two of them. And the third component was to get a real understanding and sense of how a semi-commercial unit, or how a commercial unit, and that means that decide specifically about the type of the equipment that we're going to use. And the reason it is so critically important is because we're dealing with chemistry, we have to understand exactly what happened there, and not just think about it as when one part that everything will happen. And I don't see a reason why we will not achieve all of the above in the end of the year. We are on our way with our first patents. We have a configuration understanding. We have now a real understanding of how our next generation unit will look like. We actually have a configuration in place. We're thinking of it, and we're testing on and off in the lab against that type of configuration, and we're challenging it. So we have a good strong view about what's going on, and we're definitely in these discussions with organizations, to move them from where they are to a different level. So I feel we should be able to achieve all of the above at the end of 2024.
Excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Um, so I'd like to talk a little bit about institutional investors and whether you feel you have some interested, and what exactly holds them back.
So what holds them back, we could talk hours about that, but I think the question at the moment is, why would we talk about just after we raise the money that we raise? We feel we have a lot of catalysts to bring in to improve the value that the company has, our position in general. And so we just raised money. It's in the bank. We are working in the last 6 months based on the understanding that we have to execute, otherwise money will not come in. And we haven't done, this is the first raise for some time. Everything that we've done in the last year was based on the previous raise and warrants that we execute. And we only execute those warrants because we managed to execute ourselves. And so we're in this position where we feel there is a lot of catalysts to work. And so why give it up, at this point of time? Why not continue and execute? I think there'll be a time when we'll be ready to speak with institutions, but we feel that there is a lot of catalysts that we need to be able to push out before we will do that.
Okay. And what I really appreciate about Aduro is that as a retail investor, I actually have access to this type of technology. And I know there's a couple of us investors who say it over and over again, that this can be world changing technology, and it can grow, it could become massive. And this isn't typically the kind of opportunity that retail investors have. This is the kind of thing that typically goes to venture capital firms, and most of the really solid tech gets swooped up before we even get a chance to have our hands on it. So I really appreciate being able to be here at this ground level and watch the progress happen. So
Thank you. And I feel my interest was I felt initially that we need to demonstrate the technology and show the technology to retail investors, to everyone basically that would may be interested to see it and to consider investing it. I consent and I echo what you're saying. I believe companies like Aduro are of a rarity. You will not find very often. You find all kind of things. I'm bombarded day in and day out uh, with um, with requests to look at different technologies in our space. And I can tell you, I haven't found anyone that is doing what we've been doing. There is enzymes, there is pyrolysis, there is gasification, there is everything. Whatever we're doing, with the clean heart, I say we are the only guys in the world right now that are doing it. And so that is a rarity. And if it would end up in a VC, the retail investors that are seeing it today would have probably been seeing it, 2, 3 years ahead, not now when it was going to a different size of a market, I believe.
Yeah. I know. Well, I'm happy to be able to have a larger position than I think I would be able to have in any other configuration that you could have gone to the market with. So when we talk about R3, are you
Next
planning
generation.
to build? You got me thinking Star Trek. You got me thinking Star Trek now. But yeah, the next generation unit. Is this going to be planned to be built specifically for one vertical, like for plastics, or is this going to be more maneuverable?
The next generation unit will be focused on plastic or waste plastic. In waste plastic, you have endless amount of options. We want to be able to understand. This is the work we've been doing in the last 8 months already, quite successfully, how process react to certain contamination. So we could figure it all out. So I think we have a good ground of what needs to come in the front of the base, and that is so far, I can tell you from what we see, the ketchup and the mayonnaise and everything else seems to be okay with what we've been doing. That's basically that's the front of it. Now we're dealing basically with the actual reactor configuration, and that's the next level that we're doing. And of course, if you have A and B, then C has become a little bit easier at the end. And so I hope that answer your question. At the end of the day, if you consider it as a more of a Lego type unit where we will have enough data at the front end, we will have some process in the middle, and we will be able to configure it to a certain solution. And by the way, this is not a simple challenge because waste is dynamically changing in different countries, different territories. Even with the producer of waste, sometimes they finish a production line and then move to another production line, and that's that. It's waste basically. And so there is a bit of a challenge of the market is changing and evolving, and this unit needs to be accommodate what will happen in years to come, not even knowing what will happen. So, but yes, that's kind of the understanding.
Okay, perfect. And my last question for you, I wanted to see if you could give me a little more information on Marie Gronberg and what she brings to Aduro.
Marie joined us, what was it, a year now, or less than a
I
year?
think about there, yeah.
Yeah, she's a chemical engineer by background, and she could, among, know that our other board members are, let's say, they're just not a chemical engineer. So she gets to see a little bit things, a little bit into, deeper than the others. She has a really strong experience with licensing because she's done it before and she managed that companies that are doing licensing. And so between that quality and that experience, she contribute a lot to, to how are we thinking and seeing the progress basically. So she helps in that way. Marie is also proactively helping us and introducing us to organizations, and that kind of representing us out there in the northern area of Europe, which is fantastic as well. So she brings a lot of, I mean, I just love working with her. And she's not a simple person. If anyone thinks that we just, she's not a yes man kind of a thing. We get hard questions and we try to answer to all of them and whatnot. We take commitments and we move away and do some planning. Really, really looking into the company and to keep an eye on how the company is moving, and very happy with what she's doing, basically.
Excellent. All right, Ofer, perfect. Thank you for answering my questions. Do you have anything else you want to say for our June edition?
No, just to say thank you very much. I truly appreciate the fact that people are caring and asking us. Please don't stop asking us those questions. I do want to stay as much as we can transparent to the audience that are actually putting their money and trust with us. From what I see, it's fairly important that we will continue that. So if we will do a monthly, some kind of a monthly discussion, and we'll be able to go over and people will be able to ask questions, and maybe I'll be able to share some lights of what we've been done in the last month or 2 months. It's very positive things, and I thank you for doing it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm excited too. And I always do love checking on my money. So, and yeah, and hopefully this fall when I'm in the Toronto area, I will do my best to see if I can sneak in the building and maybe get a better look.
And come visit us in London.
Yeah. Okay. I think Abe will probably let me in the door. So.
We'll let you.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you again for joining me, and we'll pick it up again next month.
All right. Yeah. Till next time.